So now it's time to color correct your footage. For the most part, videos taken from your iPhone are already going to be color corrected. They're already going to look okay, but you can still tweak some of the colors in post-production when you edit your video. So let's type Lumetri color under effects, and then let's drag and drop that right here into the first clip. And let's scroll down here. We'll go to effects controls, and under Lumetri color, we'll go to basic correction right here. Click to drop down. What I'm really going to play around with is the contrast and the shadows. So let's start with 50 for contrast, and then you can see how that kind of shifts the contrast of the image here. And then let's do 10 for the shadows. Oh, -10. There we go. And then you can see that it's kind of, the temperature is kind of orangey. So let's adjust the temperature. Let's do -10. There we go. That looks better. And remember, with iPhone video, you don't have to change the color that much. It's just very subtle, but it's to, make the image pop. Okay, that's good. So you can see right here the difference. So this is one of the clips that I haven't edited the color yet. So you can see that the shadows are not that distinct compared to this one that we just edited and color corrected. Okay, so since the color is good here, we can actually copy those same settings all throughout the other edited interview clips. I'm going to copy this and then just highlight these other ones. I'm holding down Shift and clicking on each of these. So now I'm going to right click and click on Paste Attributes. And then right here I'm going to make sure just Lumetri color is checked. Press OK. And you can see that the same settings with the color is copied over to here. Okay, so now let's adjust the color for the B-roll. Okay, so what we can do is we can just copy over the same color settings from the interview over to this one. I advise you to just do it for one clip first, because all these different clips vary. So for example, these clips right here, we shot outside. The color is going to look different from these shots right here when we shot inside the gym and it's indoors. Okay, so let's copy that over, paste. Okay.
Career by falling well.
So see the difference? It's a little bit hazier, and the colors are not distinct. So let's just edit, redo. There you go. Perfect. So that color looks good. We can copy that over. So I'm just going to, since it's the same color settings already, I didn't really adjust anything. I'm going to copy that over to these 3 other clips here, because I know they're in the same setting outside. Paste attributes, press OK.
Instead of keeping this information to myself, I decided.
Okay, good. Okay, so now let's move on to these clips. Paste that to here. Okay. I'm going to paste that into these other ones here. And I'm going to work on this one specifically. It's a little bit orange right now because of the light inside. I'm just going to bring the temperature down to -20. That looks good.
Strategy.
You can also adjust the temperature even more. If you click right here, scroll down, click creative, bring that down, you see this shadow tint right here. I like to kind of play around with this and adjust this to really adjust the temperature just slightly. I'm bringing it right here in the blue. I'm staying within the blue and not going over too much in the green or the purple. So that looks a little bit better right there. Okay, let's move on to here. You can see it's a little bit green, greenish, bluish in the tint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, go down here to creative. Actually, maybe before doing that, I can change the tint right here. So the tint is, you can adjust it to be either purple or green on the spectrum. Okay, so we just have to find the sweet spot there. And then the temperature, obviously, it's adjusting it, making it orange or blue. Okay. So let's see here. Let's try 5. A little bit better. Let's try 10. Okay, that looks much better.
The real estate investor. I spend my time.
Okay.
I'm now educating real estate investors.
So these 2 clips right here, they look good. But I think we can bring up the brightness just a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the exposure. So just slightly. You don't want to do it too much. Because, for example, let's say we adjust it to 1. That's good. Or 2. That's a little bit too bright. It's overexposed. 1 is kind of like pushing it a little bit. So I would say maybe like 0.8. 0.8 is good. And we'll do the same thing for this. 0.8. Okay, good. Let's move on. So you can see that this is a little bit orangey tint. And remember in like this previous clip here, the color was kind of orange. So since we already adjusted this, this kind of looks, similar in terms of temperature. So we can just copy this specific settings that we have for this clip over to this clip. And see how it adjusts it? That looks better. It's less orange. And actually, since this clip might have been a little bit more orange, we can adjust it even more right here. If we go down to creative and then the shadow tint, I'm just going to drag this a little bit more down to the blue and then a little bit over to the purple.
In combinations with a...
There we go. So that looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so this one seems to be similar to this lighting. So we're just going to copy. Okay, so that's a little bit too bright. We can actually bring down the exposure. Let's see, let's do 0.3. That's good.
Goals in combinations with their goals and vision.
Okay, that's good. Actually, now looking back at this one, I may want to adjust it a little bit more. So, let's see here. See what that looks like. That's a little bit better.
Income in combination.
Okay, good. And then this one maybe can be adjusted a little bit more. Let me see.
That
looks good. And remember, it's all about trial and error. You may make some adjustments to one clip and then all of a sudden you want to go back to that clip and then make more adjustments. So it's all up to your preference as well. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be a certain way, but as long as you know the basics, you'll be good to go. So let's keep moving. Now we're heading into the workout. I'm going to kind of copy the settings we had in this clip and start off here and see how that looks. Just gonna right click, paste attributes. That looks good. It's a little bit too bright. I know originally this video was kind of grainy because the I had to really push the ISO a little bit, but we'll bring this down to 0.3. And you can see that the shadow is a little bit too dark. So let's bring the shadow to 0. And for the most part, this image right here is already, like, the color looks pretty good already. So I don't think we really have to push the contrast that much. Let's make it 30.
Adopting the habit of waking up at 4 a.m. to work out.
Okay, good. So now let's just copy this over to these clips.
I wake up at 4 a.m. because I believe in pushing my body to its...
Good. Okay, let's move on. Let's copy it over to the rest of the workout clips.
I'm faced with difficulties when I get the hardest thing I possibly can right at the start of the day, so that when I'm faced with difficulties when I...
Okay, good. Okay, so now we're back to the office. So what we can do is, let's go back to one of the clips. I think this one would be good. It's kind of similar to this, but I'll just copy that, paste that here. Okay, so you can see that's a little bit too blue. The temperature looks a little too cold. What we can do is we'll just go back to creative and then the shadow tint, bring it back to the center just a little bit. Okay, and then temperature right here, we'll make it -10. And it's kind of, let's lighten it up a little bit. Let's bring it to 0.5.
I have the mental toughness to handle those problems.
Okay, good. Okay, so for this one right here, it's kind of similar in setting as this because it's in his office. So we'll just copy this. Okay, these two clips. Okay, so it's a little too bright in some areas, a little too overexposed. We'll bring it back down to 0 for the exposure. I'm gonna adjust, let's see, maybe tint up by 5. Okay, this one a little too overexposed in these areas right here and back here. Let's try to minimize that as much as possible. Go to exposure, back down to 0. This part back here I'm not too really concerned about because there's not too much you can really do. But for this wall, we want to make sure that it looks as natural as possible. So if you only want to make minor changes to the brightness instead of going through exposure, I recommend either through highlights or whites. I'm going to go to whites and bring that down slightly. I would say -15, so at least this wall right here is not overexposed at all.
Established awareness to time management and other systems.
Okay, good. Okay, so now let's move on. So we got this clip right here. Let's see, let's copy this over. See how that looks. Okay, that looks good, but you can see right here in the window, in the sky, it's a little too bright. So what we can do is we'll bring that down, make that 0. Now it's a little bit too dark. Let's bring it to 0.3 for the exposure. That's okay, that can work. I think we can adjust the shadow tint a little bit. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, let's bring it down to 0.2 and the tint for 5. Okay, that's good. And let's bring the shadows down to 0, kind of brighten up this area here, because Carl is against the window. This part behind him is a little bit darker because all the light is coming in this way. So it's okay to kind of, bring the shadows down just to brighten up this part right here. Now let's move on to this area right here where we made the nest. Now remember, before we actually made the nest, we had to make cuts within this clip right here and within this clip. So what I'm going to do is, since I'm already good here with the color, I'm going to copy this setting right here, and I'm going to double click the nest, and you can see within this nested sequence, here is that end piece that we cut, and here is the other end piece for that next clip. So for this one, I'm just going to right click, paste attributes. There we go. Okay, and now let's move on here. So you can see as it heads into the nested sequence and the transition, there's no change in color. The color stays consistent. Okay, so now let's move on to, let's go back to the nested sequence and look at this clip. Okay, so now let's go change the color there. I think one of the clips that looks similar might be this one. Okay, so let's copy that. Let's go to the nested sequence, right click, paste attributes. Okay, so it's a little too blue. Bring that down to -10 with the temperature, and bring the tint up to 5. I think we're good there. So let's just copy that and go here, this clip, paste attributes. There we go. And this is in the same setting as that previous clip. Paste attributes. Yeah, it's a little too blue. So let's go to creative, shadow tint. Let's bring that down first. Let's adjust that first. Okay.
Fast on building wealth in today's day and age. I'm Carlton Dennis. Let's begin our journey today.
Okay. Looks good.
And today, let's begin our journey today.
Okay. I think we're good for the B-roll. Let me just go back and look at the interview portion again one more time. See if I can adjust this a little bit more. I think that works. Let's see what we can do here at the creative. Okay, it's a little bit better. I think we can work with that. Let's see here. I'm going to remove the attributes for this one. I'm just going to uncheck all the ones I don't want to edit, and then just keep the Lumetri color. That's the one I want to remove. Press OK. So now you can see that it goes back to the original color that you had. So I'm going to go to this one, copy, paste. Okay, I like that look. So what I'm going to do is, for all these other ones, I'm just going to highlight the rest, as well as this one. Right click, remove attributes, uncheck the ones I don't want to change or remove, and just the lumetri color. Okay, so I'm going to go to this clip because that's the one I have the edited color in, the color settings. Copy, and I'm just holding down Shift and clicking on the ones. On the clips I want to edit, right click. There you go. Okay, so for this one, what I'm going to do is bring the blue down just a little bit. Okay, that works. I'm going to go back to this one. I'm going to copy these settings here, paste it here. That works. I think we can bring the blue up for this setting. It's a little bit too orange. Okay, so right here is an overlay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it invisible temporarily, just so I can see the actual color of this clip. I do that by clicking on this eye right here, the toggle track output. And since this is outside, I'm going to go to this clip right here, which was filmed outside. I'm going to copy the settings there, right here, and then that's a little bit better. But anyways, since the overlay is going to be over it, the color doesn't really matter that much because it's going to be a little distorted by the overlay, which is totally fine. Another note is when you make a certain track invisible, everything on that track will not be seen. And it will also not be seen in your final video when you export it. Okay, so when we turn it on, you can see that everything here, this overlay is seen, this transition is seen, but when we make it invisible, everything underneath is seen now. So I'm going to turn that on. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now we are good to go. We have all the clips, all the footage color corrected. The next step is to export your video.